Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be reviewing Unboxed. This is a not quite escape room game from WizKids. I did receive a review copy, and we're going to have a look at it without revealing too much, because I don't want to spoil any of the puzzles for you. Alright, we're just going to take a very brief look at Unboxed, but the reason that we're keeping it really short and sweet is that I don't want to ruin anything for you. This is very much like an exit game, a puzzle game, where once you've solved the puzzles, it's really like the point of the game is to solve the puzzles. So I don't want to ruin anything for you, but I do want to give you a sense of what's going on in the box. So we have this Unboxed game, and the premise of it is that you are helping an archaeologist determine the rules to some ancient board games, and you found some clues and some components, but you don't necessarily have all of the rules. So you have to reconstruct how the game was played with the clues that you're given. And you end up kind of play testing the game and seeing if it actually works the way that you think it does. So basically the concept is that we are students and our professor has discovered 10 different digs, and we are going to look at really specific components and examine them. And we're gonna put the game together. So when you open up the box, what you get is you get sort of like a cute little introductory letter from your professor. There's a scoring rubric that, to be totally honest with you, I've completely ignored because I don't care about scoring rubrics. I just like solving the puzzle, and that is just forever going to be me. So if you're interested in specific scoring, I was not the person. And then here's some information about like how to get clues. The main guide for what you're going to do is the dig manual. So if you look in here, there's a couple pages of clues at the front that I recommend that you not read. So just pop over. Let's just look at dig site 1. This is the puzzle you'll start with. You have a description. So it says, while the remains of upper class society are often the best preserved, we're getting the rare chance to examine the site of what appears to be nothing but a common inn. Remnants suggest a contest for treasure was held amongst the clientele. And then it's going to tell you what components you need. So this will be all the cards with an A in the corner, and then which components you need. So this little envelope just has some discs of different colors in it that you'll use in a number of the games in different ways. Then what's going to happen is you're going to try to answer questions about the game after you mess around with the components. So what does the optimal game setup look like? What do players do on their turn? When does the game end? How is a winner determined? So you're going to try to look at the components to answer those questions. And if you get stuck, there are clues, little numbered clues in the magnifying glasses. So you just look up the corresponding clue in those first couple pages of the book. Then if you turn the page, you'll get answers to your questions. So you can find out whether you were right or wrong. But what's kind of fun is that you're solving the mystery of 10 different games with just a few tokens and cards. So I've like made a mess in here, but there's a few different decks that have letters. We've got some cards that have other symbols and clue stuff on them. And this entire box is going to give you 10 games worth of little puzzles to solve. The other thing is that each of the games that you learn how to play is a real game that I suppose you could continue to play, although I do have some thoughts about that we'll get to in the final thoughts. But as a puzzle, that's how this game works. So if you want to try it, that's what you're getting into. It's basically 10 puzzles of increasing complexity that are you looking at clues, trying to figure out how to play a game. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and have some final thoughts. All right, so now for some final thoughts. I don't want to give too many specifics about Unboxed because, again, I don't want to spoil anything if you want to go through and do it yourself. But I will give some general feelings about it. One is that I actually thought that the initial rush of the game especially is super fun. I ended up playing this game mostly with friends, and I did some of the games by myself. So I can talk about how it felt to play it from a couple different perspectives. So I solved puzzles with a couple of different game groups, just kind of try it across people. There's 10 puzzles in the box, so, I went for it with some different people and then also by myself. I will say this game is definitely better with people. Even though I'm a solo gamer, I don't actually think this was at its best when it's solo. It's definitely better with at least one other person, preferably like 2 other people maybe. And you could definitely add a 4th. because you want to be able to argue about what the pieces could mean and what could be going on in the rules. Having to talk it out with somebody else was really delightful, and because the game really encourages you to kind of play test the games to see if they work as you think they might work, you really, really need somebody else, like all the games are 2 to 4 player games, to play with you so that you can see what seems to be working and what doesn't, and what you like and what you don't as you're piecing the clues together. So the discussion that this game generated was so fun. I had a great time just like arguing about what we thought different game things might mean, or coming to a conclusion together, or trying the game out and thinking like, oh, well, let's go back and let's try it this way. That part was really, really fun, and I thought it was really special, and I think that WizKids has done something very, very cool with the game. That said, the game does have a couple of limitations. One is that I would not play this with non-gamers. So this is a fantastic game to play as maybe like a warm-up with your game group. People who play a lot of games are going to instinctively get the clues and kind of where Unboxed is trying to go. I would not play this with inexperienced gamers because I just don't think that they speak the language of board games comfortably enough to feel confident putting these puzzles together. So there's definitely a lot of like insider knowledge that this game trades on in order to trust that you're going to be able to solve the clues and ultimately put together the games. So keep that in mind, because there are going to be audiences where this is a huge hit. I think that there are going to be other audiences that don't appreciate this at all. So play it with people. Play it with people who play games. That's my number one like set of recommendations for Unboxed. The other thing I'll tell you is that the game offers you like, oh, you know, after this you can play the games that are in the box once you figure out how to play them. You're not going to want to. The games that are in the box are like, okay, but figuring them out is the fun part, and I wouldn't like play them just to play them. So if you're going to get this box, you should get it with the expectation that you're going to solve the puzzles, call yourself done, and then maybe pass it on to somebody else. One of the really good things about this particular box is that you don't have to destroy any of the components in order to experiment and figure out the games. So you can do all the puzzles yourself, rebox it, and like pass it on to somebody else, which is, I also think, the best way to approach this. The games that are in the box aren't bad. In some ways, some of them even do feel like they could have been somebody's ancient game, although they're not. But you know, they're not compelling enough to like play on their own. It was the joy of the chase while you're figuring them out that makes them really, really good. I will say that I actually like some of the earlier games a lot better in terms of the puzzle solving and figuring things out. I felt that the later ones got a little bit too ridiculous. Like the things that you were supposed to put together to understand the rules of the game got so kind of stretched out. They became so much of a reach that I did have to look up a couple clues towards the end. And even when I did, I was like, that's what I was supposed to get out of this? Are you serious? So I thought the earlier puzzles had like a more natural feel to them. Because they're supposed to get harder game to game. By the end, like the puzzles were harder, I guess, but they were also like, there was less space to like really reason it out and like feel playful with it, because it just didn't feel as natural by the end. So, you know, really enjoy those first few puzzles and don't rush them, because I thought that the earlier parts of the game actually had a more discovery, like organic feel to them than some of the very late ones. And that's the other thing I want to mention. So Unboxed has a very cute premise where you're an archaeologist, you're putting together game rules. That is something that actual archaeologists have had to do. And I think that that is very cool. I will say I do have one complaint, which is at one point in this box, your professor says that she is really excited to have found some treasure because this is going to go great at a museum auction. I could use some crowdfunding money. No. People who are serious about archaeology and artifacts don't trade. There's no such thing as a museum auction where the archaeologist makes a lot of money even if they found something that's a lot of treasure. That's cultural property. We don't do that. And so, like, I had jarring moments where, like, you know, I was able to suspend disbelief, and then there'd be the occasional moment where I was like, oh, no. So, you know, archaeology, yes. Treasure hunting, no. But, like, it's not really that big a deal. It's just flavor. But I felt I needed to point it out because, don't ever trade in artifacts from an archaeological site, y'all. You're going to end up in jail for life. But with that said, I thought that Unboxed had a really cute premise. They committed to it all the way through. It mostly worked all the way through with a couple of notes that kind of hit off key for me. And figuring the games out was super, super cute as an experience, at least until kind of the last couple where things I thought got a little out of hand. But it was still fun, and it was still fun to see like what the designer was trying to communicate to me. to help me piece together the game from their perspective. So overall, this is such a neat premise. If you like escape rooms or puzzles, I think that you'll like Unboxed quite a bit, especially if you are doing it with other people who play games. But as I said earlier in the video, this is best with people, not alone. It is best with people who have a good understanding of an array of different game mechanisms, because that's how they're going to have the instincts they need to put the clues together. And then 3, really enjoy those early puzzles. Don't rush to the end, because actually those felt a lot more natural and like in a lot of ways more ancient and therefore on theme than some of the later puzzles did, at least in my opinion. But this was really cool. It was ambitious. I think it mostly succeeded in its goals. And I was quite charmed with Unboxed. So if what's in this box sounds fun to you, it probably will be. And I do recommend it as like an appetizer for game night or a break between games. Just kind of do a couple of these at a time. Argue with your friends about it. It's fun and healthy. Totally won't ruin any friendships. But Unboxed was very cute. So that's where I land with it. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, ask questions, and most of all, happy gaming.